Hey, welcome to the Referral Sender Show, bringing you tips and tricks from our amazing local business owners around here in Pierce County. It's Friday, September 11th, 2020. I'm Eric Michelson with my co-host, Ken Bynes. And we want to make sure local businesses are here for good. Welcome, Ken.
Hey, how you doing, Eric? How's things been?
That's good. So today is Friday, September 11th. I'd like to take a moment and kind of reflect back to the 9/11. What were you doing on that day, Ken? I mean, it's such a
I was literally, I think I was just pushing 8. I think I was 8 years old. It was third grade. I was in third grade, I remember. And I remember waking up in the morning. And for those that know me, they know that I speak about my dad very little, but my dad was a Navy SEAL. And he was a SEAL for about 4 or 5 years. Well, when I woke up, I thought he was watching an action movie. I was very young. I didn't understand. Thought he was watching a Bruce Willis or a Seagal movie, but he only said a couple words to me that morning that I can actually remember. And he told me, he looked me dead in the face and he goes, I might have to go back in the military. Gotta go back to war. And that was it. So I ended up going to school, and that's when I started really grasping the understanding of what was going on. But even at that young age, I think I did fully get the grasp and understanding too. I was a little bit older, but it was a really, really sad, deep day like that I can remember. It was the quietest day in the world that I remember. How about you, Eric?
I just remember I was living in an apartment in Puyallup. I was 27 at the time, and I just clicked on the news. I think it was maybe early 6 a.m. our time, and that's when the first plane hit the towers. And the reporters were just saying it was a little propeller plane, so I didn't think much of it. It hit the top of the towers and not much.
Yeah.
And then I got ready, started driving to work, and next thing I looked at TV again, and then you got Tower 1 completely coming down at you.
Yeah.
And going like, wow, nobody knew what was going on at the time. So drive to work, and at the time, internet was really slow back then, so we were trying to get the information, watching it on the internet. But then Tower 2 came down, and we knew something's happening.
Yeah.
But, I got to work, and just everything was. Our phone stopped ringing here. People, it was a somber day. Our business pretty much completely shut down for the next week because everybody was just in awe. And the last thing they wanted to do is buy T-shirts.
Exactly.
But what we did as a company down here at Northwest Custom Apparel is we came up with some T-shirts to raise money for the victims or the survivors of 9/11. We created a T-shirt called United We Stand, and we probably sold 50,000 of these T-shirts through all the different grocery stores, QFCs, and the profits and proceeds went to the survivors of 9/11. So yeah, it was quite the time. So I can't believe it's already 19 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
19 years. And for all you viewers out there, I don't know if you guys know, and I don't know if you know, Eric, but if you guys want to see a little piece of the memory of 9/11, you can actually go to the park in Milton.
Yes.
There's actually a piece of the metal still standing as a monument. And I know that each state end up getting at least one piece of the metal from that building. So if you guys don't know anything about 9/11, I do know we do got some young viewers. Go ahead and go up to Milton and take a look. What's the name of that park? Do you know, Eric? That Milton Park?
It's the Veterans Park. It's in Triangle Park up there. You can't miss it. It's a big piece of steel sticking up.
Yeah.
Up there. But so yeah, that was 9/11. So
19 years.
Yeah, next year is Big 20. So wow. So yeah. So we got these forest fires going around here. So I kind of want to give a quick weather and traffic. So I live down in the Sumner Valley, and as you know, there's the Sumner Great Fire up there. Started Tuesday, I believe. Smoke everywhere. So the hill's still closed going up 410. So I think that's going to reopen sometime next week. But today it's going to be 80 degrees, 82 degrees. We got that, but smoky skies. Looks like all the smoke's coming out coming from California, from Eastern Washington. So we're going to be smoked in. So I guess they call it a red flag warning with an unhealthy hair out there. So
yeah, make sure you wear your mask, guys. Make sure you wear it. Stay away from that smoke. It's not good for you.
Yeah. So here's a photo here, if I could bring in. So this is about a half mile from my house in Sumner. I took it. That's actually from the YMCA parking lot, looking up on the Sumner Hill, going up to Bonnie Lake. Pretty crazy to think that's happening in Western Washington these days. So that's what it's been happening to me here. As our power's been out, we're back on now, but just dealing with these forest fires here in Western Washington. So,
and I hear you stay out in Sumner. Is your house okay, Eric? Is everything okay?
We're fine. Just we lost power for about a day, and then just a lot of smoke. So everything's fine there. So no evacuations with us. Thank goodness.
That's good.
What about yourself, Ken? What have you been up to?
Well, I was one of the lucky few, so my power didn't go out. But I did not want to go outside and walk my dog in all the smoke and all the commotion. So I ended up staying home and watching a show that came on Amazon called The Boys. And it's about an alternative universe where all the DC superheroes are actually like bad. They're actually like real people. They're not really bad nor good. They're getting paid to save people, but they're being commercialized and marketed. It's a really, really good series. I really highly suggest it. So sat around the house, watched TV, pretty lazy week. Play with my dog in the house, in the backyard, play with the kids. We've been on PlayStation all week. So it's just been one of those weeks where you just really don't want to really go nowhere. You don't want to get stuck in traffic or smoked out or, so it's just been a pretty relaxed, really, really good week for me.
And are your kids back in school now, or did they cancel it because of the fires?
They are back in school. They're waking up every morning at 7:00. They're turning on their laptops. They're having Zoom meetings with their teachers, which is awesome because they're getting face-to-face learning still with the teacher.
Sure.
So with their schooling, it's still a new process that we all got to learn, but it's pretty cool. It's pretty sweet what the future is holding for us.
And they're in the Fife district?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yep. Right on. Okay. Yeah. You got any jokes with us today, or?
So I have one. Let me get him pull this. Oh yeah. Okay. All right. Here we go. I wrote. Okay. Why do we always tell actors to break a leg?
Why?
Because every play has a cast.
Okay, another dad joke. Okay. Cool. Well, today as our guest we have none other than the famous Darel Roa of Darel Roa Photography. Darel's a full-time professional photography. He's served clients throughout the U.S., Europe, Australia, Africa, and Asia. Over 2,000 brides and grooms and countless families, high school and college seniors, corporate and business professionals have enjoyed working with Darel since 1973. Wow. Darel's also involved with the Rotary International, National Association of Photoshops, local chamber, and the Boy Scouts of America. Many people can take pictures with their phones, but it's less common to find a professional who adds heart, soul, joy, and inspiration to their images. We welcome Darel to our show. So let's bring Darel on the camera here. Okay.
Good morning.
There's Darel. Okay.
Good morning.
How are we doing, Darel?
That's quite the introduction.
You're the man.
Thank you. And thank you for what you did back in 911 with those T-shirts and so forth. You guys have been awesome.
Thank you. We try to do it. Yeah. So how's things going? It looks like you're in a motorhome.
We are. We took a couple days off, and we're sitting here down near Oakville, Washington.
Okay.
How's the weather looking down there?
Actually, the sun just came through the clouds, and it is very, very red.
Oh wow!
So yeah, it's very, very unhealthy air.
So you're dealing with the smoke down there. So I'm wondering if is it the Eastern Washington fires or the California fires coming up from the south, or just probably a combination of a big mess.
Yeah.
What we've seen online is that as you've seen on the news also, this big black cloud that's been coming up the coast from Oregon and California, and it was sitting off of ocean shores last night, and I think it's come inland now over the last few hours.
Oh boy. Well, just stay in your RV and keep the air conditioning on, I guess. But the reason we brought Darel on is we want to kind of go over some maybe tips and tricks about photography, ask Darel some questions. But the first one is like this one right here is everybody had picture day back in school. Do you have any memories of picture day, Ken? Because Darel takes those pictures.
Actually, I do. Matter of fact, hold on. Let's see if you guys can actually see my favorite photo. See, back when I was in Hawaii, we used to do a lot of business with a lot of video companies for some reason. And my teacher ended up getting some guests from an old TV station that's no longer around called G4. And I ended up meeting I don't know if you know the actor Kelly Hu, which featured in the movie with The Rock called The Scorpion King, and she also featured in X-Men 2 with Hugh Jackman. She was one of the ones that had like the long nails. Well, we actually ended up getting professional photo shoots. This is me without dreads.
Cool.
Okay.
And then that's a close up. So I'm famous. I'm local famous.
That's your high school portrait? Or no, okay.
Yep, this is high school pictures when I was in the island.
Okay.
Yeah. And then my graduation was when we was all in gold.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And those are professional photos?
High school. Huh?
Are those professional photos?
Some of them are. The first two that I show you were professional. They was done by a photographer through G4. You can actually go on YouTube and actually see me in their video that they made called Pepsi Refresh, Mililani, 2011.
Okay.
Pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what I remember with my school photos back in elementary, I went to Northwood Elementary up there in Edgewood, is what we found out is the best thing with the photographs is getting the retakes, because if you get the retakes, you get out of class. So, so my mom would get me some really nice clothes, but I found out is if on recess, I would go out there and get my shirt super dirty and get a picture, I would get an automatic retake. So I'd have my new shirt on and then go play kickball and like slide into home plate, and then my shirt would be covered with grass, and then get the picture. My mom would go like, what have you been doing? Okay, get a retake. So that was the trick to get the retakes.
That was smart. That was clever.
Did you have to do a lot of retakes, or did you hit it the first time?
Well, interestingly, it's very, very rare that we do any retakes. Most of the schools that we deal with, especially in the last 20 years with digital photography, it's no longer just one or two images and you're done. It's typically 3 or 4 or 5. So everybody ends up with at least one usable image. So the days of retakes are numbered. We don't do them very much anymore.
So when you take
but
the photo,
I like your story.
So I can't get my shirt dirty and get out of getting the pictures, I guess. Well,
You can try.
try. So then how do you do that now? So I remember when I was a kid, it takes a couple of weeks to get them back, and then you bring them home to the parents and they look at them and say yes or no. But so do you take the photos digitally, then upload them for the parents to look at, or how does that work?
These days, there's multiple ways of dealing with the school images. The most traditional is very close to what we used to do in my grade school years, where the photo studio or the photographer actually picks the best image and simply makes it up as a package and sends it to the family.
Okay.
And we still do that a lot, because the reality is that what we would pick off of 3 or 4 or 5 images, 99.9% of the time is exactly the same thing that the parents are going to pick.
Okay.
So that's still the fastest and easiest and least expensive way of having school photographs created.
Very cool. So I remember when I was in junior high, you get the pictures, and I was dealing with some acne. And I still have the picture where I have pimples all over my face. So now, can you take those pimples off people's faces with a Photoshop or?
Yeah,
Yes, and many other corrections as well.
Okay.
Yep.
So I look like a superstar.
Those stains on those shirts that when you went out to recess, if they're not too bad, we just fix them. And yeah, exactly.
You ruined the fun for everyone.
And well, here's another real life example. We had a client in yesterday, just before we left town, who brought us a photo from 10 or 12 years ago. It actually included their kids and their pet that's no longer with us, and so it was important to them to get some additional photographs. And in this particular photograph, the T-shirts that the kids were wearing didn't go well with the background that was used in the original photograph.
Yeah.
So we're either going to change the background or we'll change the kids' shirts, one or the other. There is no honesty in photography anymore.
Yeah. Now, you always hear on the news where there's that one kid that gets that photo, then it's like politically wrong, or they're doing a pose that's bad, and they ruin the entire yearbook where they have to reprint it or rip out pages. Have you ever had that trouble kid in there doing bad things in their photos, maybe? Or can you Photoshop that out?
And you know this because just giving you a bad time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. That usually makes national news when some yearbook doesn't do their editing and you end up with something awkward in their final publication.
Okay.
I haven't had personal dealings with that, but yeah, it happens.
Okay.
That's funny.
It's called please proofread what you post.
That's funny. That's funny. And so you take the portraits. And you also do sports team photos?
Through the years, we have done many teams. Lots of basketball, lots of football. Typically at baseball. Lots of the younger grade types of teams. Typically.
Yeah.
Do you ever take pictures of the Sonics before?
The Sonics, no. We have, well, in our warm-up chat, we were talking about having started my career locally at PLU. Mm-hmm. And in that era, as a campus photographer, we did all of the PLU photography, including sports. Mm-hmm. So every weeknight and or weekend, I would be out photographing something, whether it was the PLU UPS game or their basketball. PLU sports has been very good throughout the years. Mm-hmm. And those images would typically be rush processed that same afternoon or evening, and they would be hand delivered. This is before the internet. Hand delivered to the Trib so that they would show up in the next morning's edition.
Wow.
So if you go back into the 70s, you'll see my byline on a lot of those old sports photos.
Wow. So when you talk sports teams, is that the traditional where you line up the team, and for the T-ball you have the team, and then you have the little kid with the baseball bat, like the old ones during the 70s, or has that changed?
It's not too different, although these days we add a lot of graphics. Excuse me, make them look a little jazzier than they used to.
Okay. Can you put them on like the Sports Illustrated cover where you make it look like a magazine? I know that's
betcha.
And then what about action shots? Do you actually go to a football game and do you take photos of a high school football game, say Fife High School? Would you do that?
We have done that. There have been times, in PLU days, of course, we were right there on the field. doing everything. And there have been times when local families will commission me to go down to their kids' sports event and zero in on that particular player so that they can create an album of their child in sports action.
That's pretty cool. How about you, Eric? You took any sport pictures?
Football, basketball, Edgewood and Puyallup High School, things like that. Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, going back to the school portraits, is when did they get rid of the double exposure where they had your face and then the other head up here? Did you do those?
Yeah, back in the late 70s, early 80s, that was quite a thing.
Okay.
That was actually done in weddings as well, where the bride and groom, a close-up would show up with, and then the entire sanctuary would be shown in the same photograph. And it was a little harder to do back in those days because you had to do it in the camera and not on a computer.
Okay.
That was a style. Styles come and go.
Yeah.
I do not know if this is the company that originated it, but here in the Northwest, the Yen Louis chain made that one of their signature looks for a number of years.
Yeah, we went to Yen Louis when we were kids, and you always get your photo taken in that big wicker chair.
That was another one. Yep.
That was
yep.
The times have changes. So
there are trends. You are correct.
Yeah, absolutely. So senior portraits, high school portraits. What else did you? Wedding days.
Oh, love weddings. We had the privilege of photographing in excess of a couple thousand.
Wow.
We lost track trying to figure out how many there had been, but that's an estimate.
Man.
Yeah.
They have a term out there called the Bridezilla.
I told me about that a couple times. I want to hear
What do you do when you come up against a Bridezilla?
It's we've run into almost everything that could possibly occur at a wedding. But the reality is, being an independent professional, the types of people that we've attracted through the years tend to be nicer people than the average. So the number of weddings that I wish I had not done, I can still count on just one or two hands.
Oh, good. Okay.
So without saying any names, what would you say would be your worst experience?
There was one wedding that was rather awkward, in which apparently the bride and the best man had a fling. So that was awkward as to whether that wedding was going to take place or not.
Yeah, that's funny. So
life happens.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
it does. So what are some tips and tricks if you're getting married to find a professional photographer? You just go on to Craigslist and see who can do it the cheapest, or do you get your brother-in-law that learned how to take photos from YouTube?
Yeah, all the above. In this day and age where everybody's got cameras, it's hard to select a good professional. Back in the days, remember the yellow pages?
That big look like that. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I used to sit on them.
I still have some in the studio that we use for that same purpose. But when I was teaching wedding photography, in one of the classes when we were discussing marketing, I would use the yellow pages as an example. The consumer trying to find a quality photographer could go to the yellow pages, and it didn't matter what time of year it was, whether the book had just been published or was a year old. And you would go through the yellow pages and a full 1/3 of the names in that listing in the Yellow Pages were already out of business or couldn't be contacted.
Oh wow.
Really?
Yep. Another third were probably on their way out of business and would not show up in the next edition. And maybe a third of the names in there were people that you would want to work with.
Yeah.
And so as a consumer, that really made it tough to find somebody that was good, reliable, artistic, and had some personality.
Yeah.
Right.
This day and age, referrals, of course, are always a good thing, just as they are in your business.
Yeah.
But it's tough. To this day, and even if I go online right now and start looking at some of the names that I'm familiar with, there are a whole lot of them that I know are no longer with us. They're just out of business.
Could you imagine having your wedding day and you saved a bunch of money on your photographer, but his car breaks down, going to your wedding, so he doesn't even show up? So you got to have a reliable photographer that will show up. I'm sure there's many people that just didn't show up for the wedding.
We've heard those stories over and over and over again too. You are correct.
Yeah.
In our heyday, there were times in which we would have 5 weddings a weekend. And this is a fun story. The day that my firstborn decided to make his appearance, my wife's on the other end of the motorhome here laughing. He decided that he was going to make his appearance on a Saturday.
Yeah.
We had, how many weddings? We had 3 weddings that day.
Oh, wow.
So as the primary photographer at our company, I was involved in all 3. I had my assistants showed up probably at 8 or 8:30 in the morning, and we headed off and photographed the first wedding. So then I left staff there to finish that one, and headed off to do an early afternoon wedding, and completed that one, and left staff to finish that one, and then headed to a late afternoon, early evening wedding. And throughout the course of the day, the staff would, this is before cell phones. Oh my goodness. I'm dating myself left and right here, aren't I? So they would find the church office and say, can we use your phone? So they would call and find out, well, how's it coming along? Has the kid shown up yet? And so by the end of the formal photographs of the third wedding, my staff says, hey, Darel, you just need to get out of here, and we'll finish this one up for you. So I head home after making a call to Good Sam and find out, what's the status? Well, there had been a full moon or something that particular weekend, literally. So they had women lined up in the hallways getting ready to give birth. And the nurses would make the comment, well, this is your first, it probably won't be for another day or 2. So Darel goes home, unpacks his gear, makes a sandwich, feeds the cat, and heads to Good Sam.
Yeah.
Well, we ended up showing up at Good Sam, about 20 minutes after Christopher made his appearance.
Oh, geez.
So I'm walking into Good Sam. Remember the old, they weren't even camcorders in those days. They were the video cameras that you had to carry a separate recorder thing.
You had to actually carry the VCR on your hip.
Yep. Well, back in the 80s, that's what we used.
Yeah.
The very first one I picked up literally when I was in LA one time, and brought it back, and so we started doing wedding videos in the early 80s. Yeah. So I had that with me, show up at Good Sam, walk into that was the old Good Sam, and our OB met me there, and he was just getting ready to leave. And he says, "Oh, you're just in time." So he grabs some scrubs, throws them on me, throws them over the camera, and says, "Come on in and meet your son." So we've got video, the old VHS video of our son Christopher, just hours, or actually less than an hour after his birth. They hadn't even had time to give him his first bath. So we've got, you talk about military, Ken. That nurse was definitely military trained. She took the Physohex and scrubbed this kid down underneath the faucet. It was,
Oh, geez.
it was memorable.
Oh man.
So yes, we have embarrassed that kid who's now in his 30s. We've embarrassed him with some of that video.
Well, if it makes you feel better, I can definitely relate to you. Story for another episode, but yeah, my daughter didn't make it to the hospital either. She only made it to the bathroom.
Whoa.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question is, what do you do with your pictures? This is to the viewers. Do you just shoot and share, or is there a plan for using, enjoying, preserving, and sharing your images? So the day with the Facebook is pretty much just people shoot and put it on Facebook. I mean, I don't know how many trillions of photos are out there right now floating around Facebook, but they're everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So Darel, what do you mean by shoot and share? Is that just posted on social media?
Yeah, same thing like we're doing right now. It's just
Okay.
we're
So
doing
how
some
did the
vid.
time? Oh, sorry. So how did the times change for you? So I know that you went from pretty much this like physical pictures, film, and now everything is just straight digital and just social media now. How did the change work for you? How did you adjust over the years?
Well, you bring up a couple of really good points, and one of them that I'd like to emphasize is the term the permanence. Much of what we do digitally has no permanence. What I mean by that is that nobody knows how long digital images will last, whereas traditional photography, we know, has archival permanence. There are images out there that are well over 100 years old and that can still be enjoyed and or can be recopied and preserved. We do a lot of that work, especially for family photographs. We get stories all the time, and you probably do too, of people who have all of their important images locked in their cell phone, and they've never printed them out anywhere.
Yep.
They may or may not have backups somewhere. Even if you have backups somewhere, will that technology still work in a year or two?
That's true.
You know, we've been through floppy disks. We've been through the various formats. CDs are gone.
Yeah.
You know, the thumb drives are still fairly popular. But will the technology, will the software as well as the hardware still exist in a few years to be able to access those USB drives?
That's true.
Our experiences thus far are that a digital image, once corrupted, is gone for all time and eternity. There just is no saving most corrupted files. So anybody that has anything in their life that is an important image, make sure that it's hard printed somewhere, even if it's at home.
Yeah,
that's good information. That is really, because I lost a couple thousands of photos that I wanted to keep in the past, and just like that, really losing my cell phone or not making backup, gone forever.
Yeah.
And then I got that are like in our family from 50, 60 years old, that change colors and everything. And it's always cool to bring those up and look through it, just like looking through archives.
That brings up an interesting point, because here we have a lot of digital images because we do a lot of artwork, JPEGs and stuff like that. But about 15 years ago, we got a virus called the Melissa virus. And what that did was it would go through your entire servers and then eat up all the JPEGs and make them as an unusable file. So we got that. It went through our entire network here to 20 computers, ate up our art computer, and everything was gone. Again, our backups weren't up to date, so we lost a lot of important information. So if we had those printed out in hard copies, we could have recovered on that one. So you're absolutely correct, Darel, when you say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, you're not the only one. There's been many companies and organizations that have been through that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So hopefully you have backups of backups with your digitals, your photos.
Well, we do, but the other end of that is, I think we currently have like a 1 year. We're still doing 1 year for digital images. We advise our clientele that 1 year from now, these images may or may not be available.
Okay.
That's just the reality of life.
Yeah.
It also becomes very time intensive and difficult to even locate images that are more than a year old.
Right.
Especially for those of us that have got decades of stuff. So if it's something that's important, do something with it, preferably sooner rather than later.
Exactly.
We've got one family that we really enjoy. Here's a nice real life example. We photographed this couple's wedding 10 years ago. We met them at a local jewelry store when they were having it was probably Valentine's weekend promo or something of that nature. And a wedding walk, that's what they called it. Yeah, you guys know Goldenrod up there in Edgewood. Yeah. They've been at several different locations. I think they were down in Puyallup that particular year. Well, we met this one couple as we were doing some promos with Rod and Diane down there at Goldenrod, and ended up photographing their wedding. And for the last 10 years, once or twice a year, they come to the studio now with their two daughters and have an intentional photo session, both for their Christmas cards and just plain to have something professional every year of their kids as their kids grow up.
That's cool.
It is really, really special. It's cool. Yeah. And so each one of their children, each one of their daughters has their own separate album every year.
Huh.
Wow.
It's awesome.
That's cool.
Well,
so we're now Uncle Darel. Yeah.
So I have another question about film. Since now we're still talking about it, going back, how does the image get onto a film like this? I'm curious. How does this pop out and something like this comes?
Well, the traditional process was chemical, where literally we used to joke about when you go into the dark room, make sure you don't let the dark out, because you had to deal with things either in total darkness and or under what's called safe light. And we developed the film in the dark. And once it was processed and fixed and dry, then it would be put into enlargers, either by hand or automated. Remember those days when we used to go to what were those little kiosks where you drop off your film?
Photomarts.
Yep.
Yeah. There was one up there. There was one up there in Melton, wasn't there?
They were called flash photos or Photomarts or the Kodak one. There was one right there. There used to be Piggly Wiggly.
Yeah. Well, when we used to do that, you just drop off your film and they would send it to a central processing plant, just like Costco. would do. And you drop off film there that goes to a central processor.
Mm-hmm.
And there's pros and cons to that too. The moment things leave local control, the possibilities of gremlins showing up into the process, whether it's things that don't show up on one end or the other, that can be an issue. But I digress. It was a chemical process. The film would be processed, then you would put it either by hand or automated into a printing machine that would, well, in the old days, they weren't even computer operated. An operator would have to sit there and look at a CRT or some type of a viewer and make a real fast decision. Is this image, what corrections can I make to that image to make it print better? Is it too light, too dark, whatever? And then they would push a button and it would end up on a spool of photographic paper that was thousands of feet long. And then that entire spool, together with hundreds of other customers or clients, would be processed later in that day. And then they would be cut and spliced and put in envelopes and show back up at your little drugstore or kiosk or Walmart or wherever they were.
Right.
These days, just like you do there at your company, and many of us do at home, is we do everything with printers, inkjet and or other types of laser printers in our computers. And so the process is different than it used to be, but it's still some form of imaging.
Right. So it's just like one of those old crime movies, dark room. You got the water. You're trying to make the image come through. So it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Exactly. And if you've never done it, even when we teach photography, I encourage classes to do that whole traditional process at least once, so that there's an understanding of both the history, the technology, and the art behind creating photographs.
Pretty cool.
So Darel,
good question.
In a dark room in like high school, they only make black and white photos. So how do you make colored photos? You can't do that in a dark room at your house, can you?
Well, some did.
Okay.
Yeah. But you're correct. One of another favorite story. See, you're making me think this through. I think I was 16 years old, Southern California. I picked up a Pentax, which, by the way, was the inventor of the single lens reflex, which is the most popular type of camera, both in the film days and now with digital. We're just starting to move past the pinaprism, where you look through the lens with your viewfinder, and the reason you can tell if it's a pinaprism type camera, because the top of the camera has a bump on it and a viewfinder, and so when you hit the shutter, what's happening is there's a mirror inside that flips up out of the way, so that the light coming through the lens is exactly what you see in the viewfinder. Up until the days of the pinaprism, one had to deal with reflex cameras, where you look through a separate window, usually off to the side, and the image that you saw was at least a little bit off from what the film actually saw.
Okay.
So the Pentax company came up with that idea back in late 50s, early 60s, and we use it to this day.
Wow.
Okay, where was I going with that?
I don't know. So, Darel, everybody has their photo albums that are just a big mess. You know what I'm saying? Like that.
Speaking from experience, yes.
So, what do you do with these? These are like the standard for making more photos, right? The negatives. Keep these. So if you want to get more photos, you keep the negatives, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So don't throw
That's
these
one
away.
way you can do it.
Okay. So.
Or before you throw them away, have them converted to digital.
Okay. How do we get
We
negative?
do a lot of that.
Digital? How do we do that?
Take your negatives to somebody that knows what they're doing. There are companies online that can do this as well. There again, if you ship something off, there's increased hazards in that process.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of that work locally. Personally, this last week, I came across a box full of some of my own color slides from climbs from St. Helens and Mount Rainier and beach trips out to Claylock and so forth from a few decades ago. So it's a little bit of my own family history, and I'm in the process right now of taking those slides and digitizing them so that they will not only be preserved, but they'll be much easier to share and enjoy.
Okay. So could I bring a box of old photos and slides and you could digitize them, or is that not something that you would do?
We can. The hardest part of that process is having you or somebody go through them and decide what's worth doing.
Okay. That makes sense.
That's cool. That's cool. So Darel, hey Eric.
No, go ahead. Okay.
So I got another question that just popped in my head. So out of anyone in the world, any time period, who will you say will be your favorite photographer ever?
Who is my favorite photographer? I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing the new Bill and Ted's Adventure movie because that's got so much good history in it. I don't know if there's a photographer in that one. Huh.
That's funny. Go ahead.
To answer your question a little more seriously, through the years, I've studied with a number of the best wedding photographers in the United States, actually in the world. We would often spend our off season at seminars and conventions, good old Las Vegas. And I would learn a lot. We would learn a lot about business. We'd learn a lot about the art of photography. We'd learn about marketing. We'd learn trends and styles. Much of this is now available online to anybody. So, the days of going to conventions is not as popular as it used to be.
Right.
So now with computers, besides being a great photographer, you have to know how to use Photoshop. Would that be true to say, or do you just take the pictures and somebody else does the Photoshop magic?
We can do it either way. We're blessed to have my partner and wife, Linda, is literally a Photoshop and a computer expert. And that's something that just you learn that through the years. It just does not happen overnight. So yeah, if you're blessed with somebody that you know that has that talent, hang on to them because they're worth their weight in gold. She takes what I create and makes it even better.
What about cleaning up old black and white photos and making them into color? Because I've seen some photos from the Civil War where they cleaned them up and added color to them. And it's like, wow, it gives you a whole different perspective of the Civil War and back in the 1800s, what it looked like.
Yep. That can be done both with still imaging, and now we're seeing more and more movies that have been colorized, which is fascinating. What was that one? 1914? Did you guys see that one?
Yeah, that was on, if I'm correct, either on Netflix or Amazon. Because they did World War I remaster, World War II remaster, and then did another one too in color. Yeah.
It's just amazing the things can be done. Just like in the medical industry, we can get body parts these days, and so
I think the coolest one I saw colorized, it was the old show, The Munsters from the 60s. They colorized it. And then you get to see Herman Munster. He's green and stuff like that. So it's pretty trippy. It gives you a completely different perspective watching the Munsters in color.
That would be. Have either of you guys been into Cars? You like the movie Cars, the Munster mobile?
Oh, Cars, yeah.
Chuck Barris. He probably made the Munsters car too. He was real big in Southern California when I was a teenager down there.
Oh, the dragster, the hot rod.
So we would, and those cars would typically be leased out to various businesses around LA. Come see us. We got the Munster mobile here for the weekend or whatever.
That mobile.
Yeah.
Oh, that is cool. Let's see what else we can talk about here. You're a wealth of information.
Yeah, well, I got another question real quick. So can you actually give us the history a little bit of like photography, like how it started, like how it began, like who thought let's take this person and create a still image to be cherished forever?
There's many books and articles that will tell that in detail. So the history is out there in detail. The Civil War was one of the first times that photography became well used, and so we see I can't even say the word. It's a wet plate method where they would take a piece of glass and smear a light sensitive chemical over it and put it into a light tight frame with a slide, something you could open and close, and that was put in the back of a view camera. You remember the old-fashioned photos we think about when you go down to the fairgrounds and you get those old photos?
Yeah.
They actually do those digital these days. But they still put it in this old frame camera to make it look cool.
Yeah.
But the real camera was done with a glass plate, and the photographer had to take a dark cloth and put it over their head so that they could actually see what was coming through the lens onto this glass plate. And those photographs would take a long time for the light to affect the chemical that was smeared on this glass plate. And so when you see some of these old photographs and you see people that didn't smile or they look stiff, part of the reason for that is because it may take several minutes for that image to show up on the glass plate. And so they would literally, and you can see this in some of the old photographs, they would literally have an iron rod that the subject would have to lean against or stick it up the back of their shirt to keep them holding still. And they were told, don't smile, don't change your expression much, because it's going to take up to a minute or two for this image to show up on the glass plate for the photograph to then get developed. And so, that's one of the more fascinating starts of photography.
Yeah, that is.
In the world of wedding photography, for example, it was only in the early to late 50s that color became possible. And if you look through our grandparents' or even parents' wedding albums, up until the 50s and even a little beyond, most of those wedding photographs were black and white. Because they took a long time to create originally, and they usually had to be done on cameras that were rather cumbersome. So it wasn't until the 50s that film cameras became usable, portable, fast enough that images could be done at churches and other locations to work well.
Wow, that's interesting. So I always wondered why all the photographs from the 1800s, 1900s, you see a wedding picture and they're not happy.
They look stiff, don't they?
Right, it's like
because they were.
Yep. Or like the picture of Jesse James when he got assassinated and they had all the sheriff around and everything. You know, they're looking pretty upset in that photo.
Yep.
Like, yeah, like, man.
Yep. Which brings up another interesting topic, Ken. I've been at this long enough that I've actually had multiple times I've been commissioned or hired to photograph funerals.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And trust me, the main client for that particular series of images is very cooperative. Yeah.
I heard that was a dying business. Taking
photos.
Yeah.
I like it.
What you do with that?
Keep them coming. Interestingly, that tends to be something that's, well, I was going to start to say it tended to be a more ethnic thing in certain ethnicities. It was very common and popular that when there was a funeral, the deceased would be photographed with all of their family members around. And I've had that experience a few times.
Wow.
These days, it tends to be more of a social type of a thing because that's when families happen to be together.
Yeah.
So while it may be a combination of both a celebration and a somber occasion, the reality is it's one of those times in life when we can take advantage of that because we're all together. So it's a good time to capture the moments, capture the history, remember who's important in our lives. Yep.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is really deep. Like, so what do you prefer, doing funeral portraits or
wedding?
Yeah, right, Ken. Well, let's see. Then there's birth too. We catch them at all ends of the spectrum, don't we? We could get into forensics. We could get into the medical imaging. Oh, yeah. Working with attorneys is always a fascinating thing too. Oh, that was a fun one. There was this is local stuff too. We had a number of years ago, I had a local attorney working on a project where they were trying to chase down a vehicle that was involved in an accident, and it had defective brake lights. Happened to be a large, it was a semi-type tanker truck. And so the attorney had hired a detective, and the detective hired me to chase around with him for better part of a day, up and down the Auburn Valley, as it turns out. And the detective already knew what he was looking for. And it took a few hours, but we actually did. We found the particular truck, the correct license plate, and we got photographs of it.
Wow.
Yeah. So sometimes those kind of things happen in the life of a professional photographer as well.
The fun moments, the action.
So what about a family tree? Like, how do you save all your photos for the future generation? Since now they're all digital, I guess. I mean, just pass them along your Facebook password.
That would be one way.
Yeah.
Ancestry and so many other companies now will do that for you.
Okay.
If you want to go that route. important thing is you got to get those images, those old images, digitized, because until they've been converted to digital, nobody can do anything with them.
Yeah.
That's true.
Very cool. Very cool. So
do you guys have any black sheep in your family histories?
yes.
No telling stories with your dad. No.
Yes. But now if you get a picture, if somebody takes a bad picture of you, it's floating around the internet. Before, you just throw it away.
Yep, not anymore. Now
You
it's
can't
like
hide. Once your photo's on the internet, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Keep your hands away from certain parts of the body. And
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you say? Truth view.
And just like with politics, you cannot tell anymore whether a video clip or a photo or a comment is true or not. You can't.
Yeah. Everything's a meme.
You guys old enough to remember? Was it Ho Chi Minh? It was one of those dictators. It was one of the very first images that had been doctored and put out worldwide on the news services. I think it was a photograph of him swimming across one of the rivers. If my memory is correct, you can actually look this up because historically it was one of the first phony images that was used for news purposes. And nowadays, even the video clips can be altered so well that you do not know if it's true or not.
What do they call it? Like deep fakes or something like that, where they can actually alter your face when you're talking. You can't tell the difference.
Yeah, you probably know it better than I. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Watch Snyder cut.
So when did the first selfie come out? Who took the first selfie?
Well, I understand that if you go to this cave over in Eastern Europe and take your flashlight up on the walls and look at these stick figures.
It has the first selfie.
Wouldn't surprise me. Or maybe the Egyptians beat them to it. I don't know.
Right. It was one of them.
So,
you guys.
What about around here? If you want to take photos, is there any interesting things in the Pierce County area that you like to photograph, or get your portraits done?
Well, seniors love to do stuff down in downtown Tacoma, some of the old buildings. There's lots of parks. There's lots of beach areas. There's lots of scenic places that photographs can be created. I think emotionally one needs to decide is the location what we're trying to save and preserve in this photograph, or is the person what we're trying to capture for all time and eternity?
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of philosophy that needs to be thrown in there. I will get calls, for example, that say, "Well, hey, let's go out to the rhododendron gardens because the flowers are out." Or, yeah, they are. They're gorgeous. They're wonderful. Did you want portraits of the flowers or portraits of you and your family? So,
wow.
Got to give that a little bit of thought.
Definitely. Do people still carry photographs in their wallets anymore, like this?
Do people carry wallets?
No, photographs in their wallets.
I mean, Eric, I think most people are using wallets like this.
I think so. Oh, wallets like that.
You're right. I think you're right.
Oh, well, cool. You have any other questions? You you're a wealth of information. We could probably just keep going here.
Well, you know, you live long enough and you get opinions about just about everything.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I got to give myself the pitches, DarelRoaPhotography.com, or you can find us on Facebook, email, text, whatever works. Carrier pigeon.
Okay. Okay.
There are some of those up in Edgewood, by the way.
Carrier pigeons?
Really?
Yep.
Did not know that.
Yeah, there's somebody up in the neighborhood that's had them for years and years and years.
Well, I know Amazon's using drones. Maybe they'll use carrier pigeons.
It wouldn't surprise me. Other questions, comments?
What about a software? Is there like any applications that our viewers can use to download to play on their cell phone, or just try to find an app out there? Or do you use apps?
There are thousands and thousands of different apps and softwares.
Okay.
And none of us will live long enough to learn all the ins and outs of any of them. Photoshop, for example, I don't even know what generation they're on right now. I think what counts is whether it's hardware, software, or if imaging takes another turn and becomes something besides what we currently call digital. What counts is how you use it. You know, using, for example, using an older software well is probably more advantageous than using the latest and greatest thing poorly.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Did I say that well?
Yes, I completely understand. Because once you master Photoshop in one version, you're good at it. But then they throw out another version, then they got more things you have to learn.
Yep. And it's constantly changing.
It
Brings up an interesting comment. I think it was one of the schools, probably 15 years ago or so. They said, "Hey, we're doing digital nowadays. Isn't it cheaper now?" And I had to suggest that, well, think about it here for a few moments. The answer is no. Digital photography, in my opinion, is probably 2 to 3 times more expensive than the old tried and true chemical-based photography.
Why is that?
For several reasons. Yes, we can easily and quickly get an image in a device and see it right away. However, in order to do something with that, we have to have all sorts of technology. We have to have software and hardware, and it has to be compatible with all of these things, and it's going to change.
Oh, okay.
Earlier in our career, for example, we used the world famous Hasselblad system for many of our weddings and other professional imaging. Speaking of Hasselblad, and you can look this up as well, the astronauts used it extensively for decades, and there is a 500C Hasselblad on the moon.
What's a
It's still there.
Is that the camera that was on the rover that they actually used, the RCA?
I'd have to look up and see if that's actually the one they used. But a Hasselblad, which is a European Swiss camera, handmade, arguably was one of the finest pieces of equipment for decades. When the space program started, they would literally take a Hasselblad out of the camera store, and the only modification they made before it went to the moon was that they stripped all of the lubricants out of it. No grease, no oil, because in space they don't work.
Yeah, you don't need it.
It would just gum it up. And the Hasselblad created a absolutely stunning image, very high quality, and it had removable film backs, which means you could change the type of film you were using quite readily and easily. So when they went to the moon, they literally took this greaseless Hasselblad and these film packs. And what they brought, they left the camera up there and just brought the film back.
Mm-hmm.
Did somebody have to teach Neil Armstrong how to use this camera?
Probably.
What I read, it was all automatic. So the camera actually was stationed on the outside of the Apollo lander when they landed. So when they got off the ladder, they opened the box and it came out. I'm a space fanatic. That's like my favorite stuff. Yeah, and then later on, once they had the rovers, they actually stationed the camera on top of the rovers, which was RCA was the one that was making those cameras at the time. And so then they timed it just right. So when the lunar module separated and shot back up to attach to the other module, it timely, recorded the takeoff. You should look it up. It's actually pretty cool. About like 3 hours.
Good. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the whole NASA Apollo mission. Still blows my mind to this day.
Well, this ties back into those earlier comments about being involved in the local scouts.
Yeah,
the majority of all the astronauts were scouts.
Really?
Yep, you look it up.
Eagle Scouts.
Not all Eagles, but they were either Eagles or in the scouting program.
Yeah.
True about the military too. You might know this, Ken. This is a little bit of a plug for both the military and scouts. Scouts know this, but the public may not be aware that if you are an Eagle Scout and you join the military, you are automatically a pay grade up.
Oh, really?
I did not know that.
Yep. A few years ago, our local Edgewood Scouts have had several times opportunities to visit Bangor up there with the boomers, with the big nuclear subs.
Yeah.
And the most recent time, it's about 2 years ago now, have to go through a whole lot more security than we used to have to do.
Right.
But one of the benefits up there is our group of scouts were invited to have lunch at the commissary. Oh, wow. And of course, the Navy says, well, this is the world's best commissary. I'm sure they all say that. But we're in there, and I think our scouts drained their ice cream machine. That was really, they enjoyed that part. So we're sitting around in our scout uniforms, and some young sailor comes running up to our tables and says, "Hey guys, I'm glad I caught you. I heard you were coming. Want you guys to know I'm an Eagle Scout. And I want you to know how many things I learned as a scout that I use on my job here in the Navy."
Wow.
Huh.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then he reminded them, and oh, by the way, I started out a pay grade up.
Do a lot of the scouts go into the military? It sounds like.
Probably more than the average citizen. Yeah.
Okay. But having that Eagle Scout on your resume, that's good, isn't it? Or trying to get into a college if you said you're an Eagle Scout?
Yep.
Yeah.
There are stories after stories after stories. I can think of another one here. Local Eagle Scout. He has been a civilian employee up in Bremerton. I believe he's in engineering of some type. And he was telling a story about how he went in for his annual interview. Do you guys do that at your company? Ken, did you pass? Oh. He went in for his annual interview, and 2 hours later, after discussing everything under the sun except his job, his supervisor says, "Oh, by the way, you got your raise." And it had to do with the fact that 5 minutes into the interview, these two guys discovered that they had scouting in common.
Yeah.
Just, all else being equal, if you got two applicants for something and one's an Eagle and one is not, that can be the deciding factor.
Yeah.
Wow.
Especially if your boss is an Eagle Scout, you You don't even have to know how to do your job. You're automatically in, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt.
The brotherly love.
Yeah, the fraternity, the brotherly love.
There's some truth to that.
Yeah. Holy cow, we've gone over an hour here. This is our longest interview of the world. It was.
Uh-oh.
No, that's good. It was we could keep going for hours.
For real.
But we'll have Darel back on for his second episode, part 2.
I'll do a part 2. Well, there I have another question because it just came to mind. So we talked about digital cameras, okay? And now pretty much every cell phone you get now these days has a camera on the back. So I noticed on my work phone, I only have one camera, but on my Note, I have 2 cameras, or 3 cameras, I should say. Is there any benefit to having multiple lenses, or what does that benefit for the pictures?
Yeah, that's kind of the old quip about does size matter? It all has to do with the operator. If you have these different technologies, different lenses, different capabilities, and know how to use them, then there's probably some benefit.
Okay.
If otherwise, use what you've got, learn to use it well, and don't worry so much about the little details. Did I answer that okay?
Yes. Well, Darel, it's a pleasure having you on the show, and you're out camping right now. I think your wife's over there probably wanting you to hang up right now.
Probably. She's heard this all already.
Oh, God. But again, that's how you can find Darel. He's got the website, a phone number, and all that. So it's been a pleasure having you here, Darel. Yeah. We're definitely going to have you back.
Definitely.
Hey, we love being had.
Okay, we're gonna sign you out right now, and you get back to your camping trip. Okay.
Take care and be safe, Darel. So good talking to you.
You guys too. A pleasure.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye
bye.
Oh man, that was, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a useful bit of information right there.
Yeah, it's just
good episode.
You just think a picture is a picture, but man, there's so much behind it.
Yeah, there's a lot of history behind photography. I mean, I would have never knew. We're going to have to do an interview with him just talking about the Apollo mission, though.
I know. Man, you know what you're talking about. The RC and all that, where they position the camera on the lunar module and all that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love NASA.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're smart.
But cool. So, this is our time where we want people to be a guest on our show.
Yeah. So it's very easy to be a guest to our show. The only thing you got to do is go to www.referasender.com, read our message, sign up to be a guest. And the only thing you need is a microphone and a camera. We will get back to you ASAP and invite you to be on our show. We're asking everyone in the Pierce County region to be part of this, whether you have a business, a group, or part of a school. We want everybody. We want the locals to know who you are.
For sure. So our sign off is here. Let's do it again in unison. We want to make sure you are
here
for good. Okay. See you guys.
See ya.